everyone. I got some criticism that I sound overly optimistic every time I talk about the crisis that we have on hand, and I'm just a very optimistic guy, actually. Early in the crisis, I got very optimistic about the idea that I could uh, catch up on some computer games that I wanted to write. Even though I was missing out on all these social activities, even though I would miss my coworkers, I started to focus on all the positive things that were happening, like especially writing the computer games, and also especially getting to sleep on my timetable. I have a big problem with the 24-hour schedule. My body tends to like to sleep every 25 hours, and I tend to go later and later and later. I often wonder if I have the non-24 syndrome. I mean, the problem is that most of the people who have them are blind. I think I have a mental form of non-24. I have too many things that I want to do before I can relax, and as a result, the idea of a 25-hour schedule tends to fit me a lot better. And I got very optimistic because I would be able to practice a 25-hour schedule. Actually, I just recently downloaded a clock for Mars, and I've been trying to follow that just to see how I would feel. And it's not quite as long enough for me, but it's a whole lot better than the Earth schedule, for sure. So I got very optimistic about that. Halfway through the crisis, I got very optimistic about the idea that a lot of people who were in borderline relationships, they weren't going to work out anyway. The lockdown would probably catalyze their breakup, right? And I got very optimistic that when the lockdown is over, I could go meet somebody, right? I got very optimistic about that fact. Recently, I've been very optimistic about when I go back to my job. I'm still going back to the university where I'm teaching. There's going to be a lot of layoffs elsewhere, and maybe I can find a dream job out of this whole situation, right? Although, given that so many people are out of work, it's probably going to be like a reshuffling of some sort. Just depends on your timing, I guess. But I'm just very optimistic. I've been very optimistic about the idea that I could get some exercise, right? It seems like every time I tune into Governor Inslee and his announcement of when things are going to reopen, what's going to reopen, how it's going to reopen, I always pick out the positive of it for some reason. Governor Inslee, he wants to extend the lockdown, and he's going to make an announcement on Friday. And it's a huge amount of suspense for me. But I was thinking, on Friday, if he says I'm going to open on Sunday, I'm going to be happy about that because I can rush out and do all those things I just mentioned, right? Meet somebody and go interview at those jobs that have already promised me for an interview, right? I've already communicated with quite a few people online. And among other things, right? Going to my favorite restaurant again and mingling with people there. And going back to the trail, I showed you a video of the trail and being able to mingle with people there, right? Going to the computer gaming conference in the summer, right? If he says I'm opening on Sunday, I could do all that. If he gives it another 3 weeks or 4 weeks, there could be even more build-up of good things, right? More people are going to break up as a result. More jobs are going to open. And I just keep picking out the optimistic parts of it, right? You may think this is a good thing. During this time, it helps me survive it. That's good. The problem is that I get optimistic about things that are not worth being optimistic over, right? I have a tendency to stay in relationships a whole lot longer than I really should have, right? When I was working on my PhD, I had a girlfriend who was taking advantage of me, and I kept thinking things were going to turn around. There was no way it was going to turn around, but my optimistic mind just kept saying, yeah, maybe just push through this barrier, right? And there were a lot of warning signs. Other people around me were warning me, but I got overly optimistic, right? Sometimes I get overly optimistic. For example, writing the computer games, I chase ideas that aren't worth chasing because I get this overly optimistic feeling, right? I sometimes dabble in things that really aren't worth dabbling in. So a couple years ago, I was watching a video of a video game tournament, And I thought, well, if I become really good at just one or two video games and I go there, I could go meet my future wife. And then I dabbled in a number of video games, and yeah, they were nice, especially Tetris, because there are mental health effects of playing Tetris. I'm far, far removed from being a world champion, but I just kept being optimistic that one day I'll get there, and then I'll go meet my future wife, and I'll get married and live happily ever after. Right? I have a tendency to let my daydreams go take me too far. Right? Um, it's kind of funny. A lot of people play the lottery for that reason. I've never played the lottery. Um, where else does this come up? You get the idea. I like to dream big, but unfortunately, sometimes my dreams are way too unrealistic, and it hurts, right? When I spend a lot of energy doing that. But in this case, it's kind of helpful because it's getting me over the crisis, right? And in the past, I have almost taken my own life on two other occasions. I'm very surprised that I've made it a month and a half into this without anything remotely close to that. So if it requires dreaming big to do that, I guess that's all right. But I gotta pay attention to when I'm doing this after this is all over, so I don't invest too much into something that I really shouldn't. Thanks for watching.